What happens when independent voices break through the barriers of legacy media control? When millions of viewers finally get direct access to the halls of power without corporate filters? Well, tonight we reveal the seismic shift that's happening in journalism that has establishment media figures visibly uncomfortable. Who's making history as the first YouTuber officially credentialed in the White House press corps? Why are corporate journalists less than thrilled to see independent media in their midst? What shocking admissions are former insiders making about the true nature of what they once defended as journalism? Well, the revolution in media that Ivory Hecker calls prayers being answered is happening. It's happening now, and you are witnessing it firsthand. Are you ready to learn? Well, independent media breaks through establishment barriers to bring you unfiltered truth. Millions of Americans are breaking free from another monopoly, big energy companies. Just as the next news network bypasses corporate media filters, this revolutionary device bypasses the utility company's price manipulation. When plugged into any outlet, it stabilizes electrical currents and reduces the dirty electricity that inflates your bills. As we fight for information independence in the White House press room, you can claim energy independence in your home. Get 65% off at don'twastepower.com while supplies last, because breaking monopolies starts with everyday Americans taking back control. All right, what is going on? Well, here is a live look at the White House right now. I will be returning in just a few days. That's right, I'll be back at the glorious grounds where President Trump is making history. And even more, what is happening? Well, let's get into it, because the bombshell media revolution is happening. The establishment's panicking. Independent journalists are infiltrating the White House press corps. The globalist media monopoly is crumbling as Trump's FCC turns the screws on big tech censorship. This is the great awakening they tried to prevent. There's me, as I was departing the White House, pointing out Caitlin Collins about to do her news hit. Now, let's jump into this here. Here's Ivory Hecker discussing the next news network making history as the first YouTube channel with 2 million subscribers to secure White House press credentials. The days of mainstream media gatekeepers controlling the narrative is over. The revolution will not be televised, it will be live streamed.
To that, now we have independent. I just want to express my gratitude for where we're at in the country with our freedom and our free press compared to a few years ago when there was so much fear that the freedom and the free press was being taken away. I think a lot of people prayed and fought. Their prayers were answered and their fight was rewarded. And so I want to salute that and the fact that now we have independent journalists in the White House press corps. My friend Gary Franchi is making history this year covering the White House in person there for his own independent YouTube channel. And he said something that was really pertinent from the White House press room the other day when he acknowledged that these adversaries who are trying to take away freedom don't like individual liberty, don't like free speech. They're hoping that where we're at right now, we lose momentum. And it is so key that we don't.
They are praying that we lose momentum, that we get comfortable, that we squander this opportunity. We cannot let that happen. So if you are an independent journalist, keep going. If you're a citizen reporter, keep digging. If you're a viewer, a reader, a listener, support this movement and share the truth, because there is no turning back. For the first time in history, the media belongs to the people, and we are never going to give it up again.
As you know, I've shifted a lot of my focus to educating independent journalists, news influencers, instead of doing all the news myself to get more boots on the ground. So if you want to join my next class of students next month, you can comment news below and I will send you more info. And I would love to have you be my mentee and empower you in any way I can.
Ivory's launching her own educational platform. Super cool. I recently did an interview with her, and these are some of the clips that she highlighted from them. So I thought, you know, I should share them with you because you may not have seen some of these clips. But she says when she made this post, she says, I went from being so concerned about free press fading away to seeing independent media rise to fill the gap. The prayers were answered and the fight was rewarded.
In person there for his own independent YouTube channel. And he's...
Oh, did I play that already? I must have. Okay, here's more. Now here's some more from that interview. Trump's federal communications commissioner is turning the screws on social media. Listen to me. Listen to me.
Now, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, if you were to go into YouTube and a news platform, I would have told you you're crazy. I said, don't even bother. It's such a minefield. But now it's completely changed, Ivory.
So they've loosened up with the censorship?
Oh, without question, I believe they 100%. Because Trump's federal communications commissioner is really turning the screws on social media and the suppression of conservative voices on those platforms, whether it's YouTube, X, Facebook, or wherever, or Instagram. So they know that they can't get away with the same stuff. And especially when you have people like myself in the press room, I have direct access to the president. I have direct access to the press secretary. I can put my grievances or the grievances of others. Like, for example, I was talking to a pilot today and he was asking me about tariffs and the impact of tariffs and airplane parts for maintenance. And I said, I can just email the press secretary and see if we can get an answer for you. The same thing goes for the censorship thing. If there's something that happens, I could walk right into the press secretary's office and I can say, I just want to bring this to your attention. Do you have a comment that YouTube did this, this, and this? Boom. Now we've let the White House know, and it's on the record. So the game is completely changed, Ivory. If you would have asked me 2 years ago,
and that's a fact. And the establishment media meltdown. Elite journalists losing their minds. Why? Because I'm broadcasting from the press room. You can't do that. Here's my recount of my moment in the press room. What? What? You talking to me? Yeah, I'm talking to you. What? What did I do wrong? I'm going to go tell on you. Listen. There must have been 20 people from different press outlets all sitting in front of me. And I'm just tearing into Biden. I'm saying how horrible his open border policy was, criticizing Sleepy Joe. I mean, I don't care. I don't give a shit anymore. These people, they're going to hear the message, pardon my language, but they're going to hear it. As I'm doing this, I can hear this woman, oh my, ooh, she's getting all worked up. And in the middle of my hit, she comes walking right in front of me and she goes running around to the press room to rat me out that I'm standing at the podium. Press room comes out, they're like, yeah, you can't stand there. You can stand offset, but you can't stand direct in front. And then she made this big scene. She's wearing her mask and she's going, you can't do that. Like, she's literally yapping. She's going, you can yap here, but you can't yap here. And I had another experience with the pool, the White House pool. You got the portrait of George Washington that was rescued during the War of 1812 by Dolly Madison hanging on the wall right next to you. I mean, you are in the middle of history in that room. So they're getting angry with me, these press guys, because you can't be here. You can't. This is for pool. I'm like, no, it's not. It's for everybody. So they try to make your life hard. And I go, hey, I want to thank you for giving me that advice in the press room. Really helpful. Really appreciate that. And when Yamashi gives me a hard time at the podium, and she's blowing her gasket, I go, hey, I want to thank you for giving me the tip. I didn't know. I really appreciate that. Here's the outcome of that moment. I'm just finishing up my hit, and I see all this commotion, and I'm like, well, something must be happening outside. So I grab my camera, and I run outside, and Yamashi comes walking towards me, and she goes, you missed it. But it wasn't, she didn't say you missed it with glee or malice. She said it with, as a colleague, you missed it. And I could have gone the other route with these people. I could have given them holy hell, because I don't take crap lightly. But there are certain times where you have to kind of pull back and just play the game. And she came to me and she said, you missed it. And that's when I knew I had the breakthrough. Yeah, it's beautiful. There's more. Direct from the White House. To stark contrast between administration and conservative reporters never called on under Biden now have direct access to President Trump. Previously, it was dead and quiet. Now everybody's running around. It's crazy here. Real America's Voice reporting. Let's listen.
What is it? The good thing about being in the media here at the White House is you work with some really great people. And I mean that. People that not only do you like them on a personal level, but you respect them on the professional level as well. My next guest meets both those qualifications. Monica Page with Frontlines, Turning Point. You're on with them, a contributor as well. What does it mean to you to be here working? Because you were in the Biden administration.
Yeah.
You worked and covered the Biden administration. What was it like to be here with President Trump?
It's a stark contrast between what we're seeing in this administration versus the last administration. I mean, when I was in the previous administration, it was really hard for me to have access to the president. It was hard for me to even get called on in the press briefing rooms. Now both of us, we finally get called on. We finally get our answers, questions to our answers. And it's great. I mean, previously it was really tough because you would kind of walk around the White House. It was really quiet. It was really dead. There wasn't really weren't many people here. Nobody would say anything. We try to go to the back to talk to maybe just somebody to be like, hey, what's going on, guys? It's very sleepy. Now that's completely over. I mean, everyone's running around. It's always crazy here. It's a lot of fun.
Did you ever have a possibility to ask a question in those briefings?
No.
There's no way.
Not once. And I would stand in the back or I would sit in one of the empty seats because not every seat was taken. I mean, there were some empty spots throughout the entire, 7x7 grid. I would sit in the back and I'd still raise my hand, still try every single time, maybe the once a week briefing, every other week briefing. Never got called on once. And I tried. I went to the back. I was like, can I please speak to Karine Jean-Pierre's assistant? Can I get a meeting with the press secretary? No, she's too busy. My emails, letters, all thrown out or forwarded over and deleted.
So basically they were silencing conservative voices in that press room.
Completely, 100%. And I can attest to that.
Yeah. So what is it like now? We love it. We stand in that corner. Me, you, Daniel, and Wyatt, we all stay in that corner. What does it mean to you to be in a briefing room that you're actually getting called on and you have the opportunity to ask questions?
It's an honor. I mean, because you're not only representing the company that you're with, you're representing the American people. I mean, it feels great because I get messages, I'm sure you do too, hey, do you mind asking this or somebody brings something to your attention? I would love to know an answer to this. I'm honored to be that person for the country, for our organization, asking the questions that really matter. We're not just asking just surface level questions. We're asking about policies. We're asking about decisions that are being made behind closed doors. How the White House is going to look in the future. What are we most excited about here? It's a glimmer of hope for not only us and our voice, but also the American people that really felt neglected, especially during the previous administration.
Do you have a special moment so far in this administration? We're not even 100 days in. It feels like we've been 100 years to a certain degree. Has there been any moments that have stood out so far?
Well, there's definitely a handful. I mean, even just to be here on the lawn on Pebble Beach here.
Yeah, real quick, let's show people where we're at. This is the backside of what you typically see. You see the front of the tents a lot of times, but this is the back of the tents. So
it's beautiful.
We're taking you on the inside. That's what we're doing.
It's great. This beautiful view of the Eisenhower building.
Yeah, by the way, that's the Eisenhower building over there, which is where all the executive offices are. So not a bad place to work, but
Red Tesla's over here. I think it might be down a little more.
Yeah, I think he's charging it. So some big moments here, and we continue to cover it. And this administration has done so many things. I think 112 executive orders, or even counting right now.
Hard to name a favorite one. There's been so many good ones.
Yeah. What's the reception been to you from legacy media, people obviously maybe that don't particularly like the conservative voices?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of feel the tension in the press briefing room, especially. People kind of look at you a little bit funny, like, oh, why is Turning Point in the briefing room? Why do they deserve a spot? But really, the last administration bred this sense of elitism, where just because you're a mainstream media outlet, that means you're guaranteed a spot. And just because you're guaranteed a spot means you're definitely going to get called on. The rules are out the window now. If you're in there, you have a chance, actually, to get called on. So it's a really liberating feeling. It feels great. It feels like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what the next 3.5 years plays out for us.
So am I. And we got the fake news getting exposed. NPR was caught red-handed pushing pure fiction about Defense Secretary Hegseth, White House press secretary, obliterating their lies, calling total fake news based on one anonymous source who has no idea what they're even talking about. Here's the headline from NPR. White House is looking to replace Pete Hegseth as defense secretary. Yeah, this is fake news. As the president said this morning, he stands strongly behind the Secretary of Defense. And here we have the Secretary Bessent confirming what we've been saying. When I was on the other side of the wall, I never liked the term fake news. Now that I'm on the inside, I think the term fake news probably isn't strong enough.
They've written, when I was on the other side of the wall, I never really liked the term fake news. Now that I am on the inside and I can see what they're reporting, I think the term fake news probably isn't strong enough. It's really not. That they start with an a priori, they've written the story, and then they just kind of shape shift facts to back into it, because many of the stories that I've been involved with are just so far off. There was a story in the New York Times the other day that talked about 50% headcount decreases at the IRS. Nobody's talking about that. These were on background, these were not named sources, and they're just trying to stir tumult during taxpayer these were on background, these were not named sources, and they're just trying to stir tumult during taxpayer filing season.
Joe Rogan exposing the puppet masters that certain groups are encouraging and funding the public chaos. All this stuff is real. Well, they tell you protests are organic, the deep state's pulling the strings, and Mike Benz lays it out. Listen.
In their home for months. Yeah, there's no reason for it. And it's crazy how quickly it all boiled over. And it was all these events happening together at the same time, right? The COVID, the lockdowns, the anger. Everybody got real weird because everybody was just locked in their home for months at a time. And then the George Floyd thing and the public outrage and the people were on the street, and then people were encouraging it and funding it. There were certain groups that were encouraging it, organizing it, and funding it. And they got money from people to do it. And they had pallets of bricks that were conveniently located on the street. All that stuff's real.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, we saw it. It was remarkable to see it in real time.
That's why it's crazy having a guy like Mike Benz lay out how it all is going down. And you think, oh, it's all organic. People are fed up. No, there's a bunch of people that are profiting off of this.
Yes.
They want this to take place. They want to be able to push new laws through. They want to be able to grip tighter control on censorship. These social media companies have to pay. They're responsible for this. No, you fucking funded it. You fucking funded it with tax money that was filtered through NGOs, you cocksuckers. You guys are a part of this. You want this.
Tim Dillon tells Piers Morgan the blunt truth about the traditional media. They want to put people in boxes. While the dying legacy media cuts interviews to craft narratives, independent podcasters show the full conversations. Which do you trust to tell the full story?
I shared with this woman, I did an interview with CNN yesterday, and we sat down for an hour, and then they said, we're going to edit it and put out. I said, why don't you just put it out? Maybe put out a small clip of it on the internet, but put out the full hour. I had a great discussion with this woman, Elle Reeves, who's a great journalist. And I mean, she does all these Vice things and stuff. I'm sure people dislike her. But for me, I thought she conducted a very fair interview, and we had some very good exchanges. And I said, well, why in God's name would we? And of course, you're asking, well, why is Joe Rogan so popular? I said, well, number one, he's not editing his interviews. He's putting out a full interview. Yes. Why would you edit an interview? I sat here for an hour. And there's points that people are going to go, I don't think this guy's right. And then there's points where people are going to go, she's right. And then there's points where people are going to go, the hell with both of them, but put it out. And I think that's what
isn't
they're
that why,
still trying.
Tim, don't you think it's why... But don't you think it's why shows like yours are getting so popular? Why my show's become really popular? Why Rogan's so popular? Why? Because I think young people in particular, they're just done with feeling like everything's getting cut, edited, censored by a conventional media, which doesn't seem to really understand the power of just putting stuff out and letting people make their own minds up. In other words, by the editing process, you are deciding what people should see, what they should hear. You know, they slash a 1-hour interview with you to a 10-minute interview. You have no control over what side of you is going to be put out there, and there's no more rounded view of Tim Dillon. There's just going to be what CNN or whoever it is decides the public should see of you. Whereas what I would much rather do is what we've done here, which is just have a chat for an hour, put it all out, and people, like you say, they can hear stuff they agree with, stuff they don't agree with, but they get a much more rounded sense of who you really are. A bit like Steve Bannon when he did your show or did mine.
Right.
I completely agree with you. He was...
So the free press that our founding fathers demanded is finally here. We have smashed the corporate media monopoly. Independent voices now broadcast from the White House itself. A new era of truth has begun. The people's media revolution has won. There's no going back. Look at that picture. Yeah, baby. In the White House. So the pattern is unmistakable. Taking another live look at our beautiful White House where I will be returning. There it is. Going back, baby. The gatekeeping is over. The walls are coming down. As Ivory Hecker reported, establishment journalists were less than thrilled to see a YouTuber like me with 2 million subscribers asking questions in the White House briefing room. But they can't stop what's happening. Monica Page, you heard her on Real America's Voice confirming what many suspected. When I was in the previous administration, it was really hard to have access to the president, hard to even get called on in the press briefing room. The contrast with today couldn't be clearer. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan, Tim Dillon are exposing how traditional media edits interviews to fill predetermined narratives. While Scott Bessent admits the fake news isn't strong enough to describe what he's seeing from the inside. So is this the dawn of a new era of journalism? Will the crumbling establishment find ways to silence the rising voices of truth? Drop a comment below. Share your support for the Next News Network in our efforts to go to the White House by visiting our merch shop, shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. It's linked below.